I stabbed the carving knife into the ham. Hard. The blade hit bone. I didn't stop. Blake sat at the end of the table, scrolling his phone. Elaine adjusted her napkin like she was at a country club, not the home I paid off with 40 years of work. I refilled the gravy boat, stirred the stuffing, checked the rolls. "Dinner's ready," I said. No one answered. I stood behind my chair. They waited for me to serve first. So I did, passing the plates like a waitress. Elaine took hers without a word. Blake asked for extra cranberry sauce. I gave it to him. The dining room looked nice. I'd cleaned all morning, polished the silver they never noticed, lit the candles I'd saved for something special. The scent of sage and garlic filled the house. Blake took a bite, chewed, then leaned back. "You know what he said loud? I'm sick of seeing you, Mom." Silence. Elaine didn't flinch. She smirked. Almost like they rehearsed it. I didn't speak. I kept cutting my ham. "I mean, you're just always here. Like everywhere we turn. It's suffocating." I looked down. My hands stayed steady. Elaine reached for the rolls. "It's not personal," she said. "It's just boundaries matter." "Right," I didn't answer. "Like maybe it's time you took a little break," Blake added. "Went to visit a friend. Or something." I poured more water, passed the butter, kept chewing. "I mean, you've had your time, Mom. Let us breathe." The air shifted, still quiet. But now, heavy. Choked. I stood, picked up the empty plates, my own half-finished dinner too, carried them to the kitchen, closed the door. I washed dishes while they laughed in the other room. Heard Blake make a joke. Heard Elaine fake a laugh so sharp it cracked through the walls. I scrubbed harder. I didn't cry. Not then. I looked out the kitchen window. Lights from other houses blinked across the street. Normal houses. With music and kids and grandmothers being told they were loved. My hands kept moving. I cleaned every plate, dried every glass, folded the napkins and put them away. When I stepped back into the dining room, they were already gone. Chairs pushed back, crumbs everywhere. The candles still flickering. I picked up the mess, folded the tablecloth, vacuumed the floor. Midway through, I found a crumpled napkin tucked under Blake's chair. On it, in Elaine's handwriting, "Do it tonight." I stood still. The vacuum hummed in the background. I folded the note, slipped it in my apron pocket, then unplugged the vacuum. Upstairs, a door slammed. I walked into the laundry room, opened the cabinet above the dryer, reached behind the old detergent box, pulled out the thin plastic folder I hadn't touched in years. I opened it. Still crisp. Still mine. The deed to the house. My name. Only my name. No co-owners. No liens. Paid in full. Not theirs. Never was. I closed the folder and held it against my chest. Then I poured myself a cup of coffee, sat by the back window, and waited for morning. I opened the door and almost tripped. Boxes. 4 of them, stacked up like a barricade. Winter coats. Old decorations. A label written in Elaine's handwriting, "Office supplies." I stood still for a moment, then bent down, moved them aside, and stepped into the hallway. Elaine was coming out of the guest room. My room? "Morning," she said too brightly. "Hope it's okay we put a few things outside. Just temporary. We're rearranging some stuff." I didn't respond. Blake walked past with another box in his arms. "We're turning it into a workspace," he mumbled. "Need room for the new desk." The room I'd slept in for 5 years, ever since Walter died. The one with the only window that faced the sunrise. I looked inside. My quilt was gone. The dresser emptied. Framed photos missing. In their place, a laptop bag, a floor lamp, and one of those cheap rolling chairs. Elaine smiled, tight-lipped. "We just thought it made more sense, you know, since you have..." The basement. I didn't nod, didn't frown, just stood there. Later that morning, I moved my things quietly. box by box. My sweaters, my books, my sewing kit. One step at a time down the narrow basement stairs. It was cold. No windows. One dangling bulb that flickered. I made a corner. Folded a blanket on top of a cot I found in the garage. Laid a pillow on it. Pushed the boxes against the wall. They didn't come down. Didn't offer help. Just played music upstairs and laughed about something on TV. I sat on the cot. Looked at the ceiling. Listened to the muffled sounds above me. Footsteps. Laughter, the hum of their life swallowing mine. That night, I found my night cream on the bathroom sink. Used. The lid loose. Elaine's toothbrush in my old holder. The house shifted. Not in structure, but in shape. In tone. In ownership. Not mine anymore. Not fully. I made coffee at midnight. Sat in the dark kitchen and sipped slowly, listening to the hum of the fridge and the faint thump of their TV upstairs. The next morning, I found a text on the fridge written on a sticky note. Don't forget to vacuum the stairs. Dog hair's getting bad. No signature. I pulled the vacuum out of the hall closet. Cleaned every step. Not because they asked, but because I didn't want to argue. Didn't want the noise. But I kept the note. I folded it. Slipped it in the back of the red folder from the laundry room. Filed it under reminders. When I walked back up, Elaine was in the kitchen. She glanced at my coffee and wrinkled her nose. We're switching to oat milk, just so you know, she said. And if you could avoid cooking bacon, that'd be great. Smell really lingers. I rinsed my cup, said nothing. Then opened the basement door, stepped down the creaky stairs, and started clearing space for a second set of shelves. I grabbed the receipt from the counter. Whole Foods. 137.28. Oat milk. Organic crackers. A candle that cost 26. I hadn't been there. My name was on the card. Elaine walked in from the garage holding another bag. We really need you to stop buying that creamer, she said, dropping the bag on the table. It's all processed junk. And Blake's cutting down on sugar. Remember, I didn't respond. She pulled out a fancy carton of oat milk and set it next to the one I bought last week. Seriously, she said, like I'd argued. This is just better. Healthier. We're trying to be intentional. I nodded once, then walked to my room, no, my basement. I opened the red folder, found the page labeled Card Activity, wrote Jan 3, WF 137.28. Not me. Closed the folder. Upstairs, Blake asked Elaine what time her clean beauty Zoom call started. I sat on the cot and counted backward. 4 transactions this week I didn't recognize. 3 at grocery stores. 1 at a boutique in town, each under $150. Just enough to not raise alarms. I called the bank. Chose the option for suspicious activity. The woman on the line was polite. Did you lose your card recently, ma'am? No, I said. But I think someone's using it. Family, I didn't answer. She offered to freeze the card. I said no. Can I ask why not? I just need the records for now, I said. She paused. Would you like me to email the full itemized statements? Yes, I said. Every transaction since November. I printed them that night at the library. Highlighted 28 charges. Same pattern. Small, intentional, steady. Elaine's favorite yoga place. Her skincare brands. A florist I hadn't used in 10 years. I tucked the pages into a second folder green. Label use of funds, unauthorized. I didn't tell Blake. Didn't confront Elaine. I started paying for my own groceries in cash. Kept receipts. Filed each one. Stopped cooking for everyone. Elaine noticed. She opened the fridge one afternoon and sighed loudly. Did you cook something I did? For everyone, no. She stared. I held my coffee and stared back. Later that night, I heard their bedroom door slam. The next morning, I found a post-it on the fridge, we're planning meals now. Don't double up. I didn't reply. I started buying food they didn't like. Cabbage, sardines, black coffee. I let it sit out. Let the smell linger. Elaine started eating out more. Good. I logged each restaurant on my sheet. Sometimes they still used my card. Sometimes they didn't bother hiding it. One afternoon, I watched Elaine walk in with a new purse. Designer, pale beige. That's nice, I said. She smiled. Early Valentine's gift. From Blake. She sipped her smoothie. From us. I said nothing. Walked past her. Stepped down to the basement. Pulled the folder from under the cot. Wrote Feb 8, saffron leather, $284.12. Likely bag. Still me. I closed it, then opened the file from the bank and started printing backup copies to keep elsewhere. I pulled the handle and it didn't budge. The pantry was locked. I tried again. Nothing. A new keypad blinked red. I stood there a second, then turned toward the kitchen. Elaine was pouring herself a smoothie. She didn't flinch when I asked, "When did we get a lock?" She smiled. Oh yeah, I meant to mention it. Just trying to keep things organized. Blake thought it'd help. Blake sat at the table, scrolling. He didn't look up. Organized, I repeated. Yeah, she said, snapping the blender lid shut. We've had some issues with stuff getting misplaced. This way we know what goes where. I was getting crackers. Elaine paused. Well, we're just keeping track of snacks better. I'll give you the code later. She didn't. That night I checked again, still locked. I made myself a piece of toast. Dry. No butter left. I went back to the basement and wrote it down. Pantry locked, Feb 10. No access, no code. I opened the green folder, added a tab. Restricted access, common areas. It felt absurd, a tab in a folder, but it gave the moment shape. They were drawing lines. I was drawing mine. Next day, I asked Blake directly, "What's the code to the pantry?" He looked up. Blank. Ask Elaine. She handles that stuff. That stuff, I said. He shrugged. Look, she's trying to keep things from going to waste. I nodded. Walked to the sink. Ran hot water over a single mug until the steam fogged my glasses. They ate pasta that night. Garlic bread. Red wine. I opened a can of soup in the basement. While it heated in the microwave, I opened the old storage drawer behind the dryer and found the key ring Walter used to keep. The original master key still fit most of the inside locks. The pantry. No longer one of them. Elaine had changed everything. Even the locks. Even Blake. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat at the edge of the cot, lit only by the hallway bulb. I opened a new notebook. Began listing every locked door, changed access, removed item, new rule. I called the list House Control. It wasn't for lawyers, it was for me. To remind myself I wasn't imagining it. To see how far they were willing to go. The next morning, the blender was already running when I stepped into the kitchen. Elaine didn't turn around. "We're meal prepping this week," she said. "If you need anything, just leave it on the list on the fridge." I glanced at the list. Nothing but their names. No space for mine. I opened the fridge. The milk was gone. My jam, too. She looked over her shoulder. I moved a few things to the garage fridge. "Hope that's okay." I nodded. Walked to the garage, found the milk frozen, the jam missing. I stepped back inside, closed the door, and opened the drawer by the stove. Empty. No crackers. No salt. No napkins. Later that day, I bought my own food, tucked it in a plastic bin, wrote my name on it, hid it behind the water heater. I shoved the basement door open and let it slam behind me. Cold air hit my face. The basement always smelled faintly of detergent and dust, but tonight it felt sharper, like the room itself was paying attention. I walked straight to the water heater, pulled the detergent box off the shelf, reached behind it. My fingers brushed the edge of plastic. I dragged the folder out, fast dust scattering across my sleeves. The same thin blue file I hid after Walter died. I set it on the washer, turned on the small bulb above me. The light flickered twice, then steadied. I opened the file. The papers were crisp, not yellowed, not worn. I'd taken good care of them even if no one else remembered they existed. The deed lay on top. My name, only mine. No liens, no cosigners, no early release clause, no shared equity. The house was mine down to the very last nail. I exhaled, one long breath that emptied more than my lungs. It emptied the last trace of doubt. I had thought about this moment often in quiet ways. Now it felt less like a thought and more like a door swinging open. Upstairs, I could hear the faint thump of Blake's footsteps. A drawer closing. Elaine's voice drifting down the stairs, half annoyed, half bored. "Did you move the oat milk? I swear I put it here." I closed the folder gently, ran my hand over the front. The plastic warmed under my palm. I went upstairs and passed them in the kitchen. Elaine didn't notice me at first. When she did, she glanced at the file under my arm. "What's that old papers?" She smiled the way people smile when they don't care at all. "Oh, well, don't leave anything lying around. We're reorganizing." "I know," I said. Blake looked up. So quickly, I almost missed it. He watched the folder, tracked it with his eyes. I tucked it closer to my chest. Back in the basement, I slid the folder into a different hiding spot, inside an empty paint can marked old brushes. Tucked it behind a shelf. Covered it with another box. Nothing about the movement was rushed. Just deliberate. I sat on the cot and stared at the cement floor. Quiet grew around me. Not the helpless kind anymore. A different kind. A structured kind. I pulled out my notebook and wrote a single line under house control. The deed is secure. No emotion. Just fact. Upstairs, I heard the blender again. Elaine's routine pulsed through the floorboards like a reminder. They moved in my space like they owned it. Walked through my halls like they built them brick by brick. But they hadn't. I had. Every shift I worked, every overtime, every coupon clipped. Every night I spent alone after Walter died, I put the notebook away, turned off the basement light, stood in darkness for a second listening as the house hummed around me. Footsteps crossed the kitchen. A cabinet slammed. Blake let out a long exhale, tired or irritated, or both. They didn't know what I held now. They didn't know what I could do. I climbed the stairs, slowly stopping at the top, listening to their muffled conversation. Elaine said, "She needs to understand boundaries." Blake answered, "She will." I stepped into the hallway before either of them could turn around. Then I walked to the kitchen, poured myself a fresh cup of coffee, and watched steam rise into the air. I didn't say a word. There was no need. Not yet. And later that night, when the house finally fell silent, I lay awake, planning where the next move would begin. I caught Blake in the driveway before he left for work. His truck engine coughed, sputtered, then settled into a rough idle. The same problem it had last month. And the month before that. "You should get that checked," I said. He shrugged, slung his lunch bag into the passenger seat. "It's fine. Just cold. It shouldn't sound like that." He shut the door, halfway leaned on it. "Mechanic wants 1,200. We don't have it right now." I nodded once. "I can help." He looked at me, then really looked at me for the first time all morning. "Help how I can cover it," I said. "Just the repair. I don't mind." He smirked. "Mom, you don't have that kind of money." "I do," I said. He snorted under his breath. "You're already living here for free. That's the help." I felt that one, sharp and low. He opened the door wider. "Besides, you owe us after everything." I stared at him. "Owe you?" He avoided my eyes. "Elaine said it yesterday. She's not wrong. We've done a lot for you." I stepped back slightly, not because I agreed, but because the words startled the air around me. Done a lot for me. Elaine stepped out onto the porch, then holding her tablet like a shield. She joined the conversation without being asked. It's true, she said, nodding. We've taken on so much responsibility since you moved in. Utilities, groceries, general upkeep. Groceries, I cut in. She blinked, but recovered fast. Well, groceries go fast when 3 people live in the same place. I said nothing. I already had the receipts, the charges, the logs. Blake drummed his fingers on the doorframe. Look, if you want to help, maybe you can start contributing more, like a fair share of the expenses. And if I need truck repairs, you should think about that too. It all balances out. I watched him. The boy who used to run to me after nightmares. The boy who cried after losing his first bike. Now, a man who thought love operated on a ledger. Elaine folded her arms. We're not trying to be harsh. We're trying to build a stable life here. That includes you contributing fairly. I do contribute, I said quietly. Elaine raised an eyebrow. Well, it doesn't always look like it. Blake nodded, almost relieved she said it first. Exactly. So if you want to help, start with making things easier on us, instead of complicating stuff. I almost laughed, not from humor, from disbelief. Complicating stuff. I'd made every mortgage payment, every repair, held every bill, saved every receipt. This house existed because I woke up at 4 a.m. for years to keep it, but I didn't say any of that. I let Blake finish. You want to help, fine, he said. Pay the mechanic, then we'll talk about the rest. He got into the truck. Elaine leaned down to his window. Don't forget to mention the pantry code. She keeps asking. He sighed. I'll handle it later. The truck groaned out of the driveway. Exhaust drifted into the morning cold. Elaine stayed on the porch, watching me. You know, she said, voice light and careless. Blake's just stressed. Holidays, money stuff, all that. Try not to take it personally. I met her eyes. Do you? She smiled thinly. I learned to. You should too. She went inside, closing the door with a soft click. I stood there until the cold sank into my bones. Then I went to the garage, opened my glove box, and pulled out the receipt from the last time I paid Blake's truck repair myself. I added it to my green folder, fixed the label so it was neat. Then I sat at the kitchen table and made a small list titled Debt Claims. I wrote Blake's words at the top. You owe us after everything. I let the ink dry, closed the notebook, and walked to the hallway just as Elaine's voice drifted toward the stairs. I dialed Lacey's number with steady hands. She picked up after the second ring. Aunt Corliss. Everything okay? I smiled into the phone. Just wanted to check in. See how you're doing. Silence stretched longer than usual. Then carefully, she said, I'm good. Just busy. I tried to soften the moment. You used to call me every week. I miss hearing from you. She hesitated. Yeah, I've just heard some things. My stomach tightened. What kind of things? Another pause. Then her voice dropped lower. Elaine said you've been having a hard time, that you've been forgetful, misplacing things. She said Blake's worried, that maybe you're not. Well, I went still. The floor didn't shift, the ceiling didn't fall. But something cracked under my ribs. And you believed her? I didn't say that. Lacey replied quickly. It's just, I don't know, Auntie. I'm not there. I don't want to get in the middle of something. I'm not asking you to, I said. I'm just asking if you believe me. She was quiet. Too long. I should go, she said. I've got class in 10. I nodded, though she couldn't see me. Of course. She didn't say goodbye. The line went dead. I lowered the phone, stared at it, then slowly walked back downstairs. In the basement, I sat at the cot, reached under the frame, pulled out the smaller black folder I hadn't touched in months. I opened it. No tabs yet. No entries. I grabbed a pen and wrote on the first divider witnesses. Shifted underneath, I listed Lacey, niece. Possible influence, Elaine. Claim mental instability, forgetfulness. Blake's worried. I closed the folder. Exhaled once. They weren't just taking the house. They were erasing the foundation under me. No screaming, no slamming doors, just quiet edits to my reputation passed in whispers. Later that afternoon, Elaine knocked on the basement door. I didn't answer, but she walked in anyway. "Hey," she said, holding a half-empty coffee cup. "Did you happen to move my planner? I left it on the dining table and now it's missing." I looked her straight in the eye. "No, I haven't touched it." She blinked, smiled. "Just checking. I know you've been reorganizing things down here. Thought maybe it got scooped up by mistake." "No." She lingered, scanning the space like she owned it. "You've got a lot of stuff in here," she added. "Maybe we can get a donation run going soon. Clear some things out, I'll decide what goes." She nodded, sipped her coffee. "Of course. Just offering help." I didn't move. She left. That night I texted Lacey one last message. "I know what you heard. If you ever want the truth, my door's open." No reply. I turned off the phone, placed it in the drawer, and went back to the file. I added a second line. Potential witness shift, seer damage control needed. Then I opened my green folder, checked the list of transactions again. Each one sat like a small weight, no longer isolated, but part of something full-grown. They weren't just pushing me out. They were replacing me before I ever left. I made one more note before bed. Phase 2, prepare external contact. Keep quiet. Track everything. Then I reached for my pen and drafted a new name at the top of the page. I called Halperin's office just after 9 a.m. His assistant picked up. "Halperin and Kosier." "This is Jenna." "This is Corliss Weldon," I said. "I need to meet with Mr. Halperin. Privately." She paused. "We're booked out about 2 weeks. Tell him it's about the deed." Silence. "Then hold, please." She returned in under 30 seconds. "He'll see you at 3. I left the house without a word. No notes. No explanation. I took the long route, avoiding town. Parked 3 blocks from the office and walked in with nothing but my purse and a folder. Halperin still wore the same gold-rimmed glasses, same pressed shirt. He stood when I entered. "Corliss," he said. "Didn't expect to hear from you. Things have changed." He gestured to the chair. I sat, opened the folder, laid out the deed. His eyes scanned it. Still clean. "Good. What are we doing?" "Update the title," I said. "Freeze all co-signing rights. No added names, no joint tenancy, no transfer privileges except through notarized approval." "Understood. And I want a new power of attorney. Durable. Limited access." Only one name listed mine. He nodded again, already reaching for a pen. "And the property file, I want a sealed transfer package." Untriggered, but ready. He looked at me finally, raising his eyes. "Contingency." I met his stare. "Contingency." He didn't ask more. He drafted everything fast. Years of knowing each other made the conversation tight, wordless in places. We reviewed the changes. I initialed in 4 places, signed twice, sealed one document into a security envelope marked Unreleased Transfer File. He slid it toward me. "Where do you want this held with you?" "In fireproof. I'll call if it ever needs to move." He tapped the envelope once. "No one else knows. No one." He folded his hands, leaned back. "I always wondered if you'd call again." I smiled, without warmth. They assumed I forgot what I own. He slid the deed back to me, stamped and signed. Not anymore. I left through the back exit. Stopped by the library. Printed, updated account statements. Highlighted each charge I hadn't approved. Stapled them together. Back at home, Blake was on the porch, tinkering with a power drill. "You were gone a while," he said. "Had errands." He didn't ask what kind. Didn't really care. Elaine stuck her head out the front door. Dinner's on you tonight. We're both wiped. I didn't flinch. Okay. She raised an eyebrow. Surprised I didn't push back. I went straight to the kitchen, opened my notebook and wrote legal updates filed. Power retained. Then added a single underline beneath it. They locked the pantry. They locked the guest room. They whispered about my mind. They tracked what I ate, what I bought, who I called. But they hadn't touched the house. Not yet. I placed the deed in a new folder brown, labeled it Primary Asset, Secured. I took the duplicate copy of the transfer file and tucked it behind the lining of my winter coat. That night, I made dinner. Simple rice greens, 1 grilled chicken breast, split 3 ways. Elaine pushed hers around the plate. No seasoning, I shrugged. Didn't want to use up your spices. Blake didn't look up. I cleared the plates afterward, stacked them neatly, washed them by hand, even though the dishwasher was empty. Then I returned to the basement. Opened the brown folder one more time. Checked for smudges, creases, anything out of place. It was all clean. Everything I needed was ready, quiet, sealed, and waiting. I yanked the drawer open and froze. The envelope was gone. The yellow one. The one with my tax records from the last 4 years, W-2s, 1099s, and every annual statement. I kept it in the back, under the warranty booklets clipped and rubber banded. I pulled the drawer out, entirely dumped everything on the floor. Manuals, old receipts, a stapler, a notepad. No envelope. I searched the cabinet beside it. Nothing. I checked the bin in the closet, the shelf above the washer, even the file behind the furnace, just in case I'd moved it and forgotten. Nothing. I sat on the stairs and breathed through my teeth. Then I went upstairs. The living room was empty. Elaine's tablet sat on the coffee table. I walked past it and into the kitchen, opened my laptop. Bank login. I typed my username and password. Hit enter. Access denied. I tried again, slower. Account locked. Too many failed attempts. My hands curled into fists. I hadn't touched the account in days. I reached for my phone and called the bank's direct line. The voice on the other end asked for verification. I answered every question. Then she paused. We've had multiple login attempts from a new device. Last one was this morning. That triggered the temporary lock. What device? A Samsung tablet. Texas-based IP address. Do you use one? I looked into the living room. Elaine's tablet screen lit up with a soft glow as a notification pinged. No, I said. I don't use a tablet. She hesitated. We'll initiate a security reset. Do you want us to flag the account for suspicious activity? Yes, I said. And I want full printouts of the last 3 years. All monthly statements, mail or pickup. I hung up, walked to the coat rack, grabbed my keys, left. At the bank, I showed my ID. The manager handed me a manila envelope. I didn't open it there. I waited until I was in the car. 3 years of bank statements. Every line item. Every debit. Every automatic transfer. Back home, I took the stairs 2 at a time. Shut the basement door behind me. I circled all transactions that weren't mine. Grocery runs from stores I don't use. Online orders I never placed. A transfer to an account ending in 4932 unknown. Another to a joint PayPal linked to Blake Weldon. My own son. I stapled each year separately. Added color-coded tabs. Logged everything in my notebook. Elaine had tried to forge my access. She'd gone into my drawer, used my documents, tried to get into my account. Probably to move something. Probably to make something joint. I had no proof of intent yet, but the trail was warming. I slid everything into a red folder labeled Active Theft, in progress. Then I grabbed a fresh note card. Wrote, confirm signature protection at bank. Order duplicate tax forms. Check credit lock status. I tucked the card in my wallet, then made one more entry in the witnesses folder. Bank manager Edna D. saw me request copies personally. I returned upstairs. Elaine was in the kitchen eating yogurt. "You've been out a while," she said. "I had errands." She smiled like nothing had happened. "I was going to ask, do you remember where you put the taxes from last year? Blake needed them for something." I looked at her. "I'll let you know if I find them." She nodded, turned back to her spoon. I walked past her. Calm, steady, each step counted. Downstairs, I picked up the red folder and slid it into a locked box beneath the cot. Then I opened the brown one, the deed, and laid it flat across my lap. The phone rang just after 8 a.m. I didn't recognize the number, but I picked up anyway. "Corliss Weldon?" a man asked. "Yes." "This is Howard Klein from Tri-River Bank. I handle account security and lending." I sat up straighter. "What's this about? We flagged something yesterday, a loan application. It came through our digital portal using your credentials, but something about it didn't sit right with the system. We run handwriting comparison scans for high-value loans. This one hit our mismatch threshold." My chest locked. He continued. "The request was for $200,000. Home equity. Your home." I didn't speak. He lowered his voice. "It was submitted with your name, your property information. But the signature didn't match your usual form." My hands went cold. "Do you have the application?" "I do. We haven't processed it." "Can you come in today?" "Yes," I said. "I'll be there in an hour." I hung up. Got dressed without a sound. Took my brown folder. Left through the back door. At the bank, Howard met me with a sealed manila envelope. I printed everything he said. "Take your time." I sat across from him. Opened the file. There it was. Loan amount $200,000. Collateral my house. Borrower Corliss Weldon. Digital signature scanned off by one curve, one stroke. The W too round. The C slanted back. I flipped to the attached documents. Attached income verification, Blake's pay stub. Blake's name buried under mine. Co-applicant section blank. Email used a variation of mine but wrong. One extra digit, a trick I wouldn't have noticed if they hadn't flagged it. I looked up. This wasn't me. Howard nodded. "We figured. But it's serious. Attempted mortgage fraud, especially family-based, is no small matter." I folded the application shut. "What happens next?" "We block it, of course. Flag the IP freeze-related activity, but if you want to take it further, press charges. File a report, we'd support you." I didn't answer. He leaned in. This wasn't a mistake. It was intentional. I nodded. He sat back. "Let me know what you want to do." "We'll hold everything." I left with the envelope. Pressed it flat against my chest the whole way home. Elaine was folding laundry when I walked in. She smiled. "You were gone early." "All good," I nodded. "Bank stuff. Hope nothing too complicated." "Not anymore." She turned back to the towels. "Blake's picking up paperwork later, some financial thing he's working on. Said it was time to secure the future, whatever that means." I walked past her. In the basement, I laid out the application, flattened each page, marked it with a red tag. I pulled out a new folder. Folder color charcoal gray. Label, legal action pending. I slid the application inside. Copied down the email used, the timestamp, the listed income, the signature mismatch notation. Then I made a final entry in my notebook. Confirmed attempt, Blake Weldon. Forged signature, intent to leverage home equity, $200K, caught before approval. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't call him. I just sat still. Quiet. Steady. Then I reached under the cot, unlocked the fireproof box, and slid the gray folder in next to the others. One more layer sealed. One more lock clicked. I packed the folders before dawn. Brown, red, charcoal. Each labeled, each sealed. I laid them flat in a lockbox and carried it to the car. I didn't slam doors, didn't leave notes. I drove straight to Marion's house 3 towns over, no connection to Blake or Elaine. Marion opened the garage without asking questions. We hadn't spoken in months, but she knew something was wrong just from the way I held the box. "You okay?" she asked. "I will be." She nodded, stepped aside. "Shelf in the back? Under the tarp?" I set the box down, then handed her a second envelope. "If anything happens to me, this goes straight to Mr. Halperin. It's all labeled. He'll know." She didn't ask what was inside. I left before coffee could finish brewing. Back home, I logged into the county recorder's site and downloaded a fresh copy of the deed. Still clean. Still mine. I printed 2 extra copies. Then I opened the charcoal folder, pulled out the forged loan application, highlighted Blake's email, his fake phone number, the fraudulent attachment, clipped it together with my bank statement. I slid it all into a sealed envelope, marked it, process server, personal delivery only. I made the call next. The man on the other end had a flat voice, efficient. Address I gave it. Service type intent to notify. Warning only for now. Timeline tomorrow. Done. I hung up and went to the garage. Started boxing things they wouldn't notice, missing my late husband's military flag, my parents' wedding rings, my original high school diploma, the cash I'd been tucking away since spring. I left the kitchenware, the cheap paintings, the throw blankets she liked to rearrange. I took what mattered. I wrapped each item in cloth, patted them in a blue bin, and stacked it neatly by the door. Elaine passed me as I was wiping down the garage shelf. "What's all that old documents?" "Just organizing." She didn't press. Just said we might need that shelf soon. "Blake's thinking of getting a second fridge." I nodded. "I'll make space." She walked away. I stood there holding the rag, gripping the metal shelf so tight my fingers hurt. Back inside, I copied my will again. This time, I updated it with Halperin's help, added a line restricting property access to blood relatives only. No in-laws, no spouses. Signed. Stamped. Witnessed. I made 3 copies. 2 I kept. One went in a padded envelope labeled executor copy and mailed directly to Halperin. That night, Blake sat on the couch watching a football game. "Elaine said you've been organizing stuff lately," he said casually. "I have. Need help moving anything?" "Not yet." He nodded. Didn't ask more. Elaine came in behind him, arms crossed. "You know if you're stressed about anything, you can just say it. We're here. No need for secrets." I smiled. "That's kind of you." She narrowed her eyes. I turned away. In the basement, I laid out the checklists, crossed off 5 more tasks, each one simple, quiet, intentional. No confrontations, no alarms. But when the knock came tomorrow and Blake opened that door, he'd know I hadn't disappeared. I had simply moved first. Elaine dropped the line at breakfast. "No pressure," she said, buttering her toast, "but we were thinking it might make sense to put the house in all our names. For tax reasons." Blake didn't look up from his phone. I poured my coffee. "Is that so?" She smiled. "Yeah, joint ownership's got a lot of advantages. Deductions protection. I read a whole thing about it." I sipped. "Sounds smart." Her smile widened. "Just something to think about." "I'll think about it." She nodded, satisfied, like I'd already agreed. After breakfast, I went down to the basement, sat at the work table, opened the brown folder, and stared at the original deed. My name, my signature, my stamp. Then I opened my notebook and wrote, "Chapter begins. They think they're steering the ship." That afternoon, I found a small bouquet on my nightstand. Cheap carnations, a sticky note attached. "Thanks for being open-minded. Elaine, open-minded." I folded the note in half and slipped it into the witnesses folder. That evening, Blake handed me a typed letter. Elaine drafted a sample joint deed form, just a starting point. I unfolded it. It wasn't a form. It was a template already filled out with their names typed clean under mine. "This doesn't have to be rushed," he said, watching me. "It's just, the sooner we're all aligned, the easier it'll be on everyone." Of course. Think of it like unity. I folded the letter. I appreciate that. Elaine made pasta for dinner, her version. No salt, no oil, no garlic, just dry noodles and a jar of bland red sauce. I ate 2 bites. Then I excused myself. In the basement, I scanned the sample deed, saved it, tagged it, manipulation attempt, phase 1. I added the date, logged the conversation, stapled a copy to the gray folder. Then I typed a note to Halperin. "They're pushing for joint title. Paper trail growing. Sit tight." I scheduled it to send in the morning. Back upstairs, Elaine was finishing dishes. "We're just trying to do what's best for the family," she said, not looking at me. "I know. Everything's about trust, right? Right?" She dried her hands. "I told Blake this house should feel like home for all of us, not just you." I nodded. "Makes sense." She smiled. A little too long. I went to bed early. Under my pillow, I placed a printout of the will revision. Blood relatives only. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. Let them plan. Let them think the paperwork was coming. Let them count what they thought they'd already won. Tomorrow, I'd send the email. The day after, I'd move the final box to Marion's. And then I'd be ready for the party. I smelled the roast before I saw the guests. Garlic, wine, rosemary. I stayed in the basement, folding laundry, until the footsteps started overhead. Heels clicking, laughter rising. Blake's voice louder than usual. Elaine's even louder. I went upstairs when the noise settled into chairs scraping and forks clinking. 6 people sat at the dining table, 3 couples all smiling like they belonged. Elaine saw me standing in the hallway. She didn't flinch. Just tilted her head. "Oh, sorry, Corliss. We needed all the seats tonight." I looked at the chair where I always sat. Taken. I didn't know we were having company. Elaine laughed. It was last minute. Just Blake's work friends. No stress. I glanced to the counter. No extra plate. No setting. She pointed to a covered plate off to the side. "We saved you some. It's in the microwave." Blake didn't even turn his head. I nodded. Walked back toward the kitchen, pressed the microwave button, sat on a stool plate in my lap. I ate in silence between the washer and dryer. No one noticed when I left. I carried the plate down to the basement, washed it in the utility sink, dried it. Then I pulled the baby monitor from the drawer, set the receiver on the shelf, slid the camera into the vent at the base of the hallway upstairs. I had tested it a week ago. Low battery usage. Clean audio. Tonight, I listened. Elaine laughed too loudly. She was drunk. I could tell from the way her syllables stretched. "She's still living here?" one woman asked. "Elaine? Temporarily?" Laughter. Another voice. "Isn't it her house?" Elaine, legally? Yes. Emotionally? No. She's just kind of lingering. Glass clinks. "Blake, it's complicated." Elaine again. "We're helping her transition. You know, gently. Can't just toss people out." "A man, but the place is in her name." Elaine. "Not for long." Laughter again. Blake. "It's under discussion." Elaine. "She's almost ready to sign." My hand tightened around the monitor. "She's lucky to have you guys," someone said. Elaine. "That's what we keep saying." They all laughed. I pressed record, saved the clip, then labeled the file, "Dinner, false ownership claim, intent to coerce, witnessed." I moved the file to the external drive, the same drive Marion was holding in her garage. Later that night, I went upstairs for tea. They were cleaning. Elaine's heels were off. Her mascara was smudged. She looked at me. "Everything okay, lovely evening," I said. Blake wiped the table. "Did you get enough to eat? Plenty?" Elaine smiled. "Good. We're doing Sunday brunch too. More friends. Maybe this time we'll make room." I nodded. "Maybe." She poured herself more wine. We're all one family here. No lines. No lines, I said back. In the hallway, I paused, their voices lowered behind me. I went to my room, opened the red folder, clipped a note inside, erased from table. Guests present. Attempted narrative shift. Temporary resident. Audio proof logged. I shut the folder. Then I picked up the blue post-it from the desk. On it, realtor meeting. Confirmed. 9 a.m. Monday. Elaine slid the lease across the counter like a menu. No apology, no hesitation. It's just to make things clear, she said. To keep it official. I looked down. 12 months. Rent $800. Due on the 1st, penalty after the 5th. Utilities included, she added. We're fair. Blake leaned against the fridge, arms crossed, saying nothing. I picked up the pen. My hands didn't shake. I signed it. Elaine let out a little satisfied exhale. Like she'd finally pulled off something she'd been working toward for months. Great, she said. Now we all know where we stand. I smiled. We do. She made a copy on the printer and handed it to me. I took it, walked to my room, closed the door, sat on the bed. Then I scanned the lease with my phone front and back, saved the file under a new label, lease agreement, coercion under family pressure, initiated by non-owner. I filed it into the gray folder. Blake knocked once, didn't wait. Pushed the door open. You okay, fine? She just thought after everything it'd be cleaner this way. It is, I said. He nodded. We're all adults. That we are. He left. I stared at the copy. $800. In my house. The house I paid off. The one with my name still sitting on a clean title. I slipped the paper into a clear sleeve, tucked it behind the deed. Then I opened my notebook and wrote, tenant officially, under their roof. Temporarily. That evening I made dinner, my dinner, pan-fried trout, roasted carrots, proper seasoning, no oat milk, no substitutions. Elaine wrinkled her nose. Is that butter? It is. We don't really do butter. I do. Blake didn't say anything. Just ate. Elaine picked at the fish, set it down. I'm not trying to offend you, Corliss. This is just what makes sense for everyone. I understand, I said. I mean, we're running a household now. You are. She smiled. Exactly. And rent is part of being a grown-up. Right again. She poured herself water. Pleased. Blake scraped his plate clean. I watched him. Still silent. Still letting her do the speaking. After dinner, I did the dishes. Alone. Then I walked to the garage and pulled out the last moving box I'd hidden weeks ago. Taped and labeled, Private Move Day. I carried it back inside, set it next to my nightstand. Inside, keys, bank info jewelry, my wedding ring, and a copy of the listing agreement for the house unsigned but ready. I added the lease to it. Tomorrow was Sunday. Brunch. Friends again. Elaine's smile again. I sharpened the corners of the signed lease, tucked it back into the gray folder, zipped it shut, and set it by the door. It was time to let them believe they'd won the last round. Because Monday morning, I had a meeting. I unlocked the front door and let Mr. Gallivan step inside. Nice bones, he said, walking slowly through the entryway. Original beams, I replied. I've kept them sealed every spring. He nodded. Place is in better shape than most, and the comps you sent clean? You sure you want to sell it this far under market positive? He didn't press. Smart man. Elaine and Blake had left that morning for some winery weekend. Just 2 days to decompress, she said, with a kiss on Blake's cheek, and none for me. We deserve it. They didn't notice the folder I held when I waved them off from the porch. Now I followed Mr. Gallivan through the kitchen, the hall, the bedrooms. He asked questions. I answered straight. He tapped walls, checked outlets, peeked under the sink. Never smug, just methodical. In the laundry room, he paused. What's behind the panel? Water shutoff and a storage pocket. Mind if I check? Go ahead. He opened it. I watched him scan the small safe embedded in the back wall. He didn't ask. I didn't offer. He closed it gently. You've taken care of this place. I have. We moved to the backyard. He checked the deck, then the fence. The lock on the side gate had already been replaced last week. Quietly. I'd used a local locksmith who owed me a favor from years back. We came back inside. Paperwork's all in order, he said. Funds will wire Friday. Closing's Monday morning. I'll be ready. Want me to schedule the locksmith for Monday noon? Make it 10. He pulled out a small folder. Just need the signature to seal it. I took the pen. Signed. Just like that. Done. He shook my hand. You'll leave the key in the lockbox, I nodded. I'll be gone before they get back. He left through the front. I locked it behind him, then double-checked the back and side doors. Upstairs, I stood in the doorway of the master bedroom, Blake and Elaine's room, and took one last look. Their bed, their framed wedding photo on the dresser. My dresser. I didn't touch anything. I didn't need to. Back in my room, I opened the gray folder one last time. Added the final page from the real estate agent. Final sale amount. Closing details. Timestamp. Then I zipped the folder and dropped it into my suitcase. My phone buzzed. A text from Marion. U-Haul confirmed for Sunday, 7 a.m. Coffee's waiting. I replied, see you soon. I stood in the center of the living room. No noise. No footsteps above me. No locks clicking behind my back. Just light coming through the windows. My light. Tomorrow I'd pack. Sunday I'd drive. Monday they'd return. I parked 2 streets away and waited. Their car turned onto the block just after 9. Headlights swept across the house, my house, before the engine shut off. I watched from the shadows as they grabbed their bags, laughing from whatever winery buzz they were still carrying. Elaine marched up the walkway, first heels clicking. Blake followed with 2 overnight duffels. She reached for the door. The key didn't turn. She tried again. Harder. Then rattled the knob. What the Blake, the key's not working. He dropped the duffels on the porch and tried his own key. Nothing. The lock didn't budge. This is jammed, he muttered. Did you lock it wrong before we left? Elaine scoffed. I don't lock doors wrong. Blake pushed his shoulder against it. Maybe the deadbolt stuck. It's not stuck, she snapped. It's changed. He blinked. Why would it be changed? Elaine's voice pitched sharp. I don't know, Blake. Why don't you ask your mother? I watched from the sidewalk as she hammered the doorbell. No answer. They paced, knocked harder. Finally, Elaine stomped to the side window, cupping her hands to the glass. The furniture is gone, she shouted. Blake. The house is empty. He joined her, staring through the darkened front window. Where the hell is everything? Elaine grabbed her phone. I'm calling the police. She did. I waited. 7 minutes later, a cruiser rolled up. Officer Delaney stepped out. Tall. Calm. Local. He'd been to my house once years ago for a raccoon stuck in the crawl space. He approached the porch. What seems to be the issue? Elaine nearly lunged at him. We've been robbed. Someone changed the locks. Everything's missing. Blake rubbed his forehead. My mom's stuff. All her boxes. Everything. Delaney raised a hand. Whose name is on the deed? Elaine spoke first. Ours. Delaney shook his head. Last I checked, this property belongs to a Corliss Weldon. Elaine froze. What? Blake stepped forward. But we've been living here. There was supposed to be a title update not recorded, Delaney said. And we received a packet earlier today, delivered in person. He held up a clear plastic evidence sleeve. Inside, a notarized affidavit, a certified copy of the deed, a letter authorizing a locksmith change, the closing statement dated Monday morning, and on top, my signature. Elaine paled. What? What is this? Delaney opened the envelope and read aloud. Owner Corliss Weldon has sold the property to Gallivan Holdings. Full transfer effective Monday at 9 a.m. All non-authorized occupants are to vacate immediately. Elaine grabbed the railing. This is a joke. This can't be real. Delaney handed Blake a copy of the affidavit. It's already filed with the county. Blake scanned the pages. His hands shook. But, where's my mother? Where did she go? Delaney shrugged. She left a forwarding address with the recorder. Everything's legal. This isn't a criminal matter. Elaine choked out a laugh that sounded more like a scream. She sold the house. She sold the house, Blake whispered. She wouldn't do this. Delaney tucked the documents back into the sleeve. She did. Elaine's voice cracked. But this is our home. Delaney looked at her. Not anymore. They stood there, bags at their feet, keys useless in their hands, as if the concrete under them had given way. Elaine kicked the door once a sharp, helpless strike. Blake didn't move. The porch light flickered, then steadied. I stepped back behind the trees as Delaney returned to his cruiser. He didn't see me. He didn't need to. When they finally sank onto the top porch step, heads in their hands, I turned and walked toward the corner of the block. The night air felt clean, steady. By morning, I'd be in another state. But tonight, I watched the house release them. Elaine stormed into the bank first. Blake trailed behind her face, tight eyes darting. I wasn't there to see it, but I already knew how it unfolded. I'd met with Howard the week before. In person. Quietly. Everything notarized, signed, refiled. Every joint account dissolved. My savings consolidated. My retirement locked under my sole access. They headed straight to the counter. Elaine snapped her card down. We need to check our balances. Something's wrong. The teller pulled up the profile, scanned it, paused. Blake leaned in. Under Corliss Weldon, I'm an authorized user. Joint. The teller blinked. Sir, I'm seeing that account now lists Corliss Weldon as the sole holder. Elaine's face twitched. No, he's a co-owner. He's been on it for months. I understand, ma'am. But the documentation was updated last week. Everything's in her name only. Blake's voice rose. I helped manage those accounts. I handled payments. I'm sorry, sir. But the permissions were legally changed. There's nothing I can release. Elaine's mouth opened, then closed. Blake gritted his teeth. Pull up the Wellspring card. The teller clicked through. That's a secondary user card. Elaine slapped her palm on the counter. I used it this morning, it worked. Transaction likely hadn't posted. There's now a restriction. Blake leaned in harder. We need to speak to someone higher up. They got escorted to Howard's office. He greeted them with professional calm. Mr. Weldon. Mrs. Weldon. Elaine started in. There's been a huge mistake. You need to restore Blake's access. Howard didn't flinch. There's no mistake. Corliss removed co-signing authority, as is her legal right. She's our dependent, Elaine hissed. Howard raised an eyebrow. She's the property seller of a fully paid-off residence, has a six-figure retirement account, and carries zero debt. That doesn't reflect dependence. Blake's jaw locked. Elaine fumed. She said she'd take care of us. She said Howard tapped a folder on his desk. Her words were not a contract. Blake stood. We need access. She's clearly not thinking clearly. Howard held up a hand. I reviewed her documents myself. She's lucid, deliberate, and fully informed. This conversation is over. They left without $1. Later that afternoon, Elaine tried again at the pharmacy. Vitamin refills. A moisturizer she claimed she needed. She swiped her card at checkout. Declined. Tried again. Declined. The clerk asked if she had another form of payment. Elaine muttered something, dug for cash. Came up short. Left the items on the counter, drove back to the motel. Blake sat on the edge of the bed, scrolling through emails. one from the realtor, one from the county recorder, one from the utilities company they were no longer on the house's account. Elaine dropped her purse. She planned this. Blake didn't answer. Elaine's voice cracked. What kind of mother does this? He stared ahead. The kind who gets tired of being erased. She didn't respond. The motel room smelled like stale carpet. A distant dog barked. The heater clicked, then went silent. Elaine curled into the corner of the bed. Blake got up, walked to the window, looked out toward the parking lot. His hands were empty. No keys, no account access, no house. Just the echo of a door he hadn't noticed closing until it was locked behind him. The courier didn't smile, just held out the envelope and asked Blake Weldon. Blake nodded, stepped forward in the motel parking lot. Took it. The man walked off without a word. Blake stared at the return label, Halperin and Associates. He tore the flap open. Hands' tense lips pressed tight. 3 items slid out. First, a copy of the forged loan application, his own handwriting staring back. His attempt at mimicking mine. My name signed with a pen he'd borrowed from the junk drawer. The form stamped, but never approved. Second, a formal letter from Mr. Halperin stamped, notarized, direct. RE attempted fraudulent filing. Client Corliss Weldon. Each paragraph worse than the last. Each sentence a legal nail. Blake scanned it. Twice. His knees sank into the edge of the motel mattress. Elaine hovered. What is it? He handed it to her. She read. Slower, mouth open. She's pressing charges. Not criminal, he muttered. Just civil. Financial misconduct. Misuse of POA. Attempted fraud. Elaine scoffed. But she didn't file police. She doesn't need to. She froze everything. She has the papers, the lawyer, the leverage. Elaine flung the documents to the floor. She's making us look like criminals. Blake didn't answer. He reached for the third item. A small, folded note. Thicker paper, familiar handwriting. He opened it. 4 words. This was never yours. He stared at it. Not underlined, not angry, just final. Elaine snatched it. Read it, tossed it. Blake stood, pacing now. Breath short. She had that waiting, that letter, that file. She timed everything. Elaine folded her arms. So what now? We sue her. He didn't respond. Blake. Still nothing. She made herself the victim. No, he said finally. She made herself the owner. Silence settled. Thick. Ugly. Elaine dropped into the chair beside the bed. Picked up the note again. Stared. She's not coming back, is she? Blake didn't answer. He walked to the window, looked out at the same gravel lot, same blinking neon vacancy sign, same rusted sedan with its cracked windshield and overdue tags. He closed the envelope, tucked it back inside. Elaine's voice softened. You think she'll forgive us? Blake didn't turn around. She already wrote her answer. I unlocked the front door. No one behind me. No voices upstairs. The house breathed quiet. The hallway stretched wide, hollow. Every echo bounced back at me. I walked slow, steady. My boots thudded softly against the wood I'd polished too many times to count. The living room stood bare. Couch gone. Coffee table gone. Even the rug Elaine must have rolled it up before they left. I didn't care. I crossed into the kitchen. Opened a cabinet. Empty. I didn't come for furniture. Just one thing. The photo still hung in the hallway, between the thermostat and the light switch. The frame was scratched, the glass dusty, but the image Blake 5 years old clinging to my waist. His smile wide, missing 2 front teeth. My arms wrapped around him. Sunlight pouring in behind us from a county fair we could barely afford. I took it off the hook, ran my thumb along the edge of the frame, slipped it into the crook of my arm. That was it. No farewell notes. No look back. I stepped outside, pulled the door shut behind me, locked it. Slid the keys into an envelope labeled Gallivan, closing complete, then dropped it in the lockbox by the mailbox. The wind picked up. I reached into my coat pocket, pulled out the folded lease Elaine made me sign. $800 a month. Utilities separate. No overnight guests without approval. The ink had barely dried when I scanned it. Now I unfolded it once more. Read the signature at the bottom mine. Stiff. Cold. I tore it in half, then in half again. Walked to the curbside bin and dropped it in. Let the lid slam shut. Across the street, a neighbor waved. I nodded. Once tight. I got into my car, placed the photo carefully in the passenger seat, buckled it in like it still mattered. The engine started. I didn't turn on music, just drove, block after block, away from that street, away from them. One turn, then another. The sun began to lower behind the hills. Shadows stretched long across the asphalt. Ahead, the highway opened wide. No traffic, just road. I pushed open the screen door and stepped onto the porch. The wood creaked under my feet. Not from neglect, just age. The sea stretched wide in front of me. Blue-gray quiet, endless. No footsteps upstairs. No bickering in the hallway. No questions about oat milk or bills or who's staying in which room. I sat. Picked up the mug from the small side table. Still here. The letters were faded, but not cracked. It had come with me in the front seat, wrapped in an old sweatshirt, the photo resting beside it. I poured coffee from the thermos. Black. Hot. Held the mug in both hands and breathed in. The salt in the air made everything feel sharper, cleaner. No lawyer calls, no forged documents, no whispered lies, just wind and water. I sipped. The heat steadied me. The porch was mine, the house behind me mine, paid in full. Quiet neighbors. No locks changed behind my back, no tricks. The silence wasn't heavy now. It was clean. I looked down at the mug again. Still. Here. I didn't buy it for the phrase. I bought it because it fit my hand. But now sitting here, it meant something else. Not defiance, not revenge. Just truth. I'm still here. Not where they left me. Not what they called me. Not what they expected me to become. I reached for the photo tucked in the side table drawer. The only one I brought. Blake at 5 holding a stuffed bear laughing with jelly on his shirt. No Elaine. No cold silence between us. I pressed the frame flat on the table, face down. Then leaned back, eyes closed, the mug warm against my chest. No one could take this from me. Not again. I opened my eyes. The waves kept rolling. The mug didn't shake. And I didn't move.